The movie is set in a dystopian world, which is still reeling from the aftermath of a nuclear war. Due to the high levels of radiation, the atmosphere has become poisonous, and the land has become unsuitable for agriculture. The water sources have also depleted, and there is a serious lack of other essentials like food and fuel. Because of all this, the remaining population of humans have gone crazy, and they constantly fight against one another for survival. Although the world has now become mostly deserted, legend says that there is a city called Green Place, which has abundant water, greenery, and food for anyone to survive. It also has an extremely uncreative name. Next, we are shown a city named the Citadel, which is a system of caves that lies on a cliff. The Citadel has a large community of survivors who are deformed and look half dead due to radiation and lack of food and water. The Citadel is led by a monster-like old man, Immortan Joe, who wears a face mask with air pipes to breathe. He is also the only person in the entire city to have wives. In fact, he has 5 of them. God damn. The radiation killed off almost all of the fertile and beautiful women, so having 5 wives is a luxury which only the richest can afford in this world. Joe trades water, food, and milk with fuel and armaments with other clans. He has taken control over the only water source found in Wasteland, Aqua Cola, as if it's something he invented and owns. Not only water, he trades mother's milk too. Joe has hired a crew of women so that he can harvest their breast milk and trade it with other clans. Geez, I don't remember that. I just remember cars exploding and stuff. His close acquaintances are the Gastown clan, which he trades for fuel, and the Bullet Farm clan, which has a large collection of weapons. Meanwhile, Joe addresses the crowd from a cliff and mentions that he is their redeemer. He is also the leader of the War Boys, a bunch of cancer-inflicted patients who are willing to die for him. Joe mentions that the Citadel will rise from the ashes and become a prosperous clan. Saying this much, he releases some water, but only for a few seconds. After Joe shuts off the water supply, the people go crazy and fight for it. Joe warns the crowd to not get too addicted with water, so that they will not resent its absence. Joe then sends his lieutenant Imperator Furiosa, who has a prosthetic arm, to collect fuel and bullets. Shortly after, she leaves in a war rig, while several war boys accompany her in smaller vehicles. Later, on the way, Furiosa diverts her rig and starts heading east. Her war boys are confused by the sudden change of plans, but since they are loyal to her, they don't ask much. Elsewhere, Joe finds out about Furiosa's change of direction and immediately heads to his chambers where he has locked his wives. When he reaches there, he is stunned to find that they are all gone. A message on the wall reads that their children will not be warlords, implying that they will have run away from him. Here, we get to know that Furiosa has betrayed her master and is escaping the place with the women. In the next scene, we are introduced to the protagonist, Max, a road warrior who is searching for a righteous cause. Nowadays, he is constantly bothered by visions of the dead, who he couldn't protect from the war. As he is gazing around the deserted place, the war boys appear out of nowhere, prompting Max to drive off. However, he doesn't get far, as the war boys destroy his vehicle and tie him up. Then, they drag him to the Citadel. Inside the cave, the war boys trim his hair and beard. They also make tattoos on his back, one being written as a universal donor, O negative, as they intend to use him as a blood bank. When they try to brand Max with a burning iron having the shape of a skull, he manages to free himself and escape. He fights several scavengers along the way, but just then, he starts getting visions of the dead. This distracts him momentarily, allowing the war boys to capture him again. In the next scene, Joe orders his war boys to go I keep saying that word, to go after Furiosa. While everyone is preparing for war, an almost dead war boy named Nux takes Max along with him as he desperately needs blood. He chains Max to his vehicle and transfuses his blood so that he gets the constant energy required for the battle. Following this, the whole gang drives off. And, is no one gonna talk about that guitarist with the flamethrower guitar? Okay. Meanwhile, Furiosa's war rig is attacked by another scavenging tribe, Buzzards. She manages to defeat them, but soon notices the large horde of soldiers sent by Joe. Scared, she drives into a massive sandstorm in hopes that she can lose her pursuers. The plan works, Partially. All of Joe's minions stop, except for Nux. He is hell-bent on pleasing his master, having a lovely day, so he pours fuel into his car and attempts to ram it with Furiosa's war rig. His plan is to sacrifice his life and become a martyr, while also killing Furiosa. However, due to the sandstorm, he loses control of the car and crashes it nearby. After a while, Max rises from the sand and notices that he is chained to Nux, who is still unconscious. On walking a bit further, he finds Furiosa's rig, where the 5 girls are cleaning themselves up. Here, we get to know that one of the girls, Splendid, is 9 months pregnant with Joe's child. Max asks the girls to cut off his chain that ties him to Nux, but they fail to do so. Just then, Furiosa notices Joe's men approaching in the distance. She prepares to leave with the girls, but Max demands to be freed first. With this, the two get into a fight. Max eventually overpowers Furiosa and even manages to cut his chain off. He then gets into the war rig and drives away, leaving everyone behind. What a prick. As the girls think that they're doomed, the rig stops nearby. It turns out that Furiosa has installed a kill switch in the rig, which only she knows how to restart. Because of this, Max reluctantly lets all the girls inside. He also promises to lead them to a place called Green Place, which is supposedly a safe haven for girls, but still has a stupid-ass name. Later, Furiosa drives the rig to a canyon, ruled by biker bandits called the Rock Riders. She has already made a deal with them, which states that they will get to pass the area in exchange for 3,000 gallons of fuel. As Furiosa gets out of the rig to negotiate, the Rock Riders spot the large horde of Joe's troops arriving. This violates the deal, as Furiosa mentioned that only a few people would be passing through, not an entire city. The bikers are furious, but before they can take any action, Furiosa enters the rig and drives away. However, the bikers are not going to let up so easily on her, so they start following the rig. With this, an intense chase ensues. But once again, the heroes manage to kill the bad guys one by one. By this time, the war boys have also closed in on the rig. As Joe tries to shoot at the rig, Splendid opens the door and makes herself a shield for everyone. She is sure that Joe will not hurt their baby. Surprisingly, he holds back, as he is adamant on giving birth to a successor. Nux tries to console him that they will get the girls back, but this only angers Joe, and he leaves Nux behind. Meanwhile, as Splendid tries to climb back inside the rig, she slips and falls. Joe tries to save her, but only ends up running her over. When he stops, he finds Splendid's lifeless body and screams in anguish. In the next scene, Nux, who is disappointed with Joe, manages to enter the rig. There, he changes sides and promises to help the girls escape. At first, they are skeptical about his motives, but when Nux mentions that he doesn't have many days left to live, they take him in. As they drive through the night, their rig suddenly gets stuck in the mud. To make matters worse, the Bullet Farmer gang starts approaching them. It turns out that Joe has sent the gang in return for a large amount of water, with all hopes now seeming to be lost. Nux comes up with an idea. He tells Max to tie a rope around a tree so that the rig can use it as leverage. Surprisingly, the plan works, and the group gets out of there before the enemies arrive. The following morning, Max wakes up in the rig, haunted by the visions of the dead. Furiosa tells him to get some rest, as she explains to him about the Green Place, where she was born and abducted in her childhood. Since she wants redemption, and Joe's wives want hope for their lives, they decided to run from the Citadel. After a while, they reach a place in the desert with a tower where a woman, the Valkyrie, screams for help. Although Max thinks it's a trap, Furiosa steps out of the rig and shouts her mother's name and her clan's name, Seeds. Soon, the Valkyrie climbs down the tower, and she is joined by several other elderly women on bikes. They all spend a moment of joy as they are reuniting after decades. Following this, Furiosa asks directions to the Green Place, but to her horror, the women reveal that the place has become desolate and is not suitable for living anymore. They explain that the muddy swamp they passed through was the Green Place, but it is now poisonous and infertile. They also reveal that the remaining mothers of their clan have died long ago. Hearing all this, a shattered Furiosa falls on her knees and breaks down in despair. Later that night, Furiosa tells Max that the Seeds will help them ride across the salt flats to find a new home. The only problem is that they have have to leave the rig and ride on bikes for about 160 days to reach there. As expected, Max despises the idea and tells Furiosa that he won't be joining them. The next morning, Max gets a terrible vision of his dead daughter. When he wakes up, everyone is already gone. Max realizes that he cannot make the same mistakes again, which led to his daughter's demise, so he quickly drives to the bikers. He stops them and asks them to go back to Citadel, which has abundant water and food crops. Also, the place is unguarded now since Joe and the War Boys have been in pursuit of them. Furiosa thinks long and hard about it, but after she realizes that Max is correct, she agrees. Soon, the group rides in the rig, accompanied by the Seeds on their bikes. Joe sees the rig going towards the canyon and realizes that they are driving back to the Citadel since it's unguarded. Worried, he immediately tells his men to pursue the rig. After a bit of high-speed chasing, the War Boys finally catch up with Furiosa's rig, and a brutal war ensues. Several of Joe's men are killed, but the good guys also suffer casualties in the form of the bikers. Furiosa is also injured when a War Boy jumps onto her with a dagger. With the war getting more brutal by the minute, Furiosa and her group somehow manage to get an upper hand. With the help of Nux, she manages to get onto Joe's rig. The two then start tussling in the moving vehicle, but Furiosa eventually ends the fight when she attaches Joe's mask onto the wheels, taking his face off and killing him instantly. Despite the leader being killed, the War Boys are still fighting with all their might. Just then, Nux, who is driving a large fuel tanker, thinks of a plan. His entire life has been unappreciated and assaulted, so he wants to perish with a good cause. In short, he wants to help the innocent girls escape from the tyranny of the War Boys. Soon, he violently swerves his vehicle and crashes against a rock. A large explosion occurs, and it finally kills all of the War Boys. Sadly, Nux also loses his life, but it was a decision he had made long ago. Elsewhere, on the way to the Citadel, Furiosa becomes severely weak and collapses. As the other girls start panicking, Max steps in. He makes a small cut underneath Furiosa's lungs to help her breathe. When the plan doesn't work, he gives her a transfusion of his own blood. Luckily, the procedure works, and Furiosa slowly opens her eyes. Soon, the group arrives at the Citadel, where Max reveals Joe's mouthless corpse to the people, making everyone excited. Yeah! The War Boys. The people of the Citadel rip off Joe's corpse as they are happy that the tyrannical rule has finally come to an end. They then start shouting to let Furiosa and Joe's wives inside the cave, as they are the real rulers. With the public support against them, Joe's War Boys reluctantly comply and make the ladies their rulers. As Furiosa and her group overlook the entire crowd, she notices Max silently leaving the place. Since his promise has now been fulfilled, he will venture to new lands, where other people are in need of help. The movie ends as an unlimited supply of water is released from the cave, sending everyone into a state of frenzy. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.